After I hit my head in a car accident, I was told when I woke up that the impact had caused a concussion that might make me lose some memories. Medically, it was called retrograde amnesia, but all I felt after waking was pain and dizziness. That was until my wife's self-proclaimed childhood friend and my wife's foster brother came to my hospital room. My heart skipped a beat. Since when did I have a wife? Oh no, was this some classic melodrama? But when they learned I had lost some memories, especially my memories of my wife, they frantically asked the doctor when I would recover. Wait, what was going on? Pain was like a rusty power drill, boring through my temples, churning my already muddled brain. I groaned in pain, using every ounce of strength. I barely forced open my heavy eyelids. My blurred vision gradually focused. What came into view was not the yellowing ceiling of the shared apartment I remembered, but an artistic, luxurious crystal chandelier. My nose filled with the faint scent of premium disinfectant, mixed with expensive aromatherapy. I slightly turned my neck, stiff as if rusted solid, and looked around. This was definitely no ordinary hospital room. The spacious room was several hundred square feet thick. Handmade wool carpeting covered the floor. There was even a set of leather sofas nearby, and a small reception bar. Sunlight poured through the enormous floor-to-ceiling windows. Outside, I could even see the city's dazzling river views over the heart of the city's business district, whose office had been moved into a hospital room. My name is Fang. I was an ordinary recent graduate. Even if I sold both my kidneys, I could not afford one night in a VIP room like this. Mr. Fang, you're finally awake. A middle-aged man in a white coat, bald on top, with a chief physician badge on his chest, hurried over with several nurses. He looked as excited as if I were a priceless treasure. He took out a small flashlight, shone it into my pupils, then urgently asked some basic questions. What happened to me? The moment I spoke, my throat felt dry enough to burn. You were in a car accident. The doctor looked grave. He handed me a cup of warm water, and only continued after I drank it. Mr. Fang, the sedan you were riding in on the elevated ring road was severely rear-ended and overturned. You've been unconscious for 4 full days. Fortunately, the car had special bulletproof reinforcement, and you were very lucky. You did not suffer any serious injuries. 4 days? My mind went blank. Bulletproof reinforcement? I was just an ordinary office worker. Why would my car need to stop bullets? The doctor froze. He exchanged a worried look with the head nurse, then cautiously asked, Mr. Fang, do you remember what year it is? I answered without thinking. 2021, of course. Didn't I just turn 22? The room fell deathly silent. The doctor's hand froze halfway to his glasses. The head nurse sharply inhaled. The doctor swallowed and paused, his tone becoming unbearably strained. Mr. Fang, it is 2024. Your brain scan shows that the violent impact left a blood clot pressing against your hippocampus. Simply put, you have retrograde amnesia. You've lost nearly 3 years of memories. 3 years. My mind buzzed. It was as though a huge bell had been struck beside my ear. How is that simple? You just used the medical term. No. I lost 3 years of memories. What did I do during those 3 years? How did I end up in a hospital suite this extravagant? As my mind churned in confusion, trying to pull even one clue from the blankness, the head nurse gently reassured me. Mr. Fang, please don't worry too much. Chairwoman Shen, your wife, Miss Shen Buyu, has already arranged the country's finest medical specialist for you. Your memories will gradually return. Wait a second. My eyes flew wide open. I stared at the head nurse in disbelief. The sudden movement tugged the IV line in the back of my hand, and I sucked in a breath from the pain. What did you say? Wife, I'm married. Who is Shen Buyu? Chairwoman Shen. Those 2 words felt like a brutal blow, smashing into the top of my skull again. I tried to remember, but every memory tied to that name, including memories of this marriage, had been completely erased as if by an eraser. Before the head nurse could explain just who this extraordinary wife I'd never met could be, the hospital room door was suddenly flung open. I looked over warily. 2 young men rushed inside in a frenzy. The man in front was refined and handsome, with the precise air of an elite attorney, but his tie was slightly crooked, and his suit jacket was wrinkled. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He clearly had not slept well for days. Half a step behind him was a young man in his early 20s. He wore an oversized hoodie, his hair tousled in every direction. His features held the fresh, bright charm of youth. He was the picture of a vibrant college student, but his expression now was even more anxious than the suited man's. His eyes were red from exhaustion. The moment they entered and saw me sitting up in bed, both let out long sighs of relief. Thank goodness, you're finally awake. The suited man hurried to the foot of my bed, pushing up his glasses. The college student was even more agitated. He rushed to my bedside and gripped the bed rail with both hands, gazing at me eagerly. I shrank back warily. I looked at the 2 strangers, completely guarded. Who are you? Did you come to the wrong room? No. Wait, I have amnesia. So, who are you? The air in the room froze again. The college student's smile stiffened. The suited man's hand paused on his glasses again. They both turned to stare at the doctor. Chief Jian wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and gave a dry cough. Attorney Yang, Young Master Shen, Mr. Fang, suffered brain trauma in the accident and has lost the memories of the past 3 years. In other words, he has not only forgotten Chairwoman Shen, but both of you as well. Amnesia. Attorney Yang and young Master Shen cried out in unison. They were so loud that I jumped. They whipped background, staring at me as though I were an alien. The suited man took a deep breath, fighting to suppress the tremor in his voice. He introduced himself. Fangs you. Look at me carefully. I'm Yang Xiang. I grew up with Shen Buyu as her childhood friend. I am now the chief legal counsel of the Shen group. The college student panicked too, pointing at his own nose. He spoke with an obvious sob in his voice. Brother-in-law. It's me. I'm Shen Buji. My grandfather and sister Shen's grandfather were old comrades in arms. I was raised by the Shen family. I'm Ms. Shen's foster brother. I even asked you for spending money last month. You don't remember any of it. Childhood friend, foster brother, a CEO wife. Those 3 explosive labels rapidly rearranged themselves in my mind. No. Something was wrong. As someone who had devoured countless novels on the subway commute and knew every web novel trope after 10 years of reading, my brain, in just 3 seconds, completed an epic chain of logic. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. A trace of bleak sorrow rose within me, along with a flash of understanding. Case closed. I knew this trope inside out. Wasn't this the classic novel plot of the entrance of a trophy husband, the icy female CEO and her substitute husband, all over again? Shen Buyu. Just listen to that name. It sounded like she'd be soft, sweet, and fragile, the kind who'd topple with one shove. An utterly adorable little girl, forced by a family marriage arrangement or an elder's dying wish. A beautiful rich heiress forced to take a poor guy like me as her live-in son-in-law. Over the past 3 years, I must have suffered every humiliation in that cold, wealthy household. I obeyed her every whim, yet could never warm her icy heart. And these 2 men standing before me, Yang Xiang, her childhood friend, that bastard, had to be the man Shen Buyu had always loved but never had. Her unattainable first love, freshly returned from studying abroad. He was here now, because he'd heard about my accident, eager to see whether I was dead, so he could take my place. Shen Buji, her foster brother. He called me brother-in-law so affectionately, but beneath that sunny college boy act, he surely harbored improper feelings for his sister. He was a top-tier manipulative schemer. He must have badmouthed me to Shen Buyu countless times. Maybe this accident was not an accident at all, but an elite family power struggle, or some dirty scheme to force me out with nothing, cooked up by the 2 of them. At that thought, my gaze changed. My initial confusion became 30% mockery, 30% cold detachment, and 40% indifference. The 3-year deadline had arrived, since heaven had given me amnesia, erasing the humiliation of being her desperate lapdog. Then in this life, I Fangs you would never again be anyone's stepping stone. I would reclaim my dignity. With my own hands, I leaned against the soft hospital bed, folding my arms over my chest, putting on the authority of the rightful spouse. My icy gaze swept over Yang Xiang and Shen Buji. I spoke coolly. Don't bother putting on this brotherly love act for me. Go on. The 2 of you came here together today. Whose idea was it? Are you planning to throw me a 10 million yuan check to leave Shen Buyu, or declare war on me outright? The room fell instantly silent. It was so quiet, I could hear the fluid dripping. Yang Xiang and Shen Buji looked at each other. The shock on their faces gradually shifted into utter bewilderment. Shen Buji scratched his messy hair and looked at me cautiously. Brother-in-law, did you hit your head too hard? What nonsense are you talking about? Yang Xiang frowned deeply and looked at the doctor, as if asking, are you sure it is only amnesia? Just then, the hospital room door opened for the 3rd time. This time, the newcomer was a young person in a sharply tailored suit. She had neat, ear-length hair, and a strikingly handsome face. Her delicate features were almost androgynous. She held a thick stack of documents, radiating crisp, no-nonsense workplace efficiency. My heart skipped again. Another one? Even the legendary Lu Bu needed his red hair to fight 3 enemies at once. Me, stuck in a hospital bed, I was seriously outmatched. The cute young guy walked in, saw that I was awake, and her eyes lit up at once. She released a long breath of relief. Brother Fang, you're finally awake. Thank goodness. Do you have any idea? The atmosphere at the company has been suffocating these past few days. Her voice was crisp and capable. She was actually a woman. Looking closer, I could see that she did, in fact, have curves. So I did not have to take on 3 rivals at once after all. Still, I did not recognize the person before me. And you are. You must be Qingqing. Qingqing froze. She nearly dropped the documents in her hands. She turned to Yang Xiang and Shen Buji. Brother Fang, what's wrong with him? He has not only lost his memory, but may have knocked himself stupid too. Yang Xiang pressed a hand to his forehead and took several deep breaths, struggling to retain the composure of an elite attorney. He walked step by step to my bedside, bracing both hands on the bed rail and staring intensely into my eyes. His voice trembled with a desperate plea that sent chills down my spine. Fangs you, listen carefully. It is fine if you have forgotten me, Yang Xiang. It is fine if you have forgotten that little brat Shen Buji. It does not matter if you have forgotten Qingqing either. But I have just one question for you. You must answer me truthfully and seriously. Seeing him act as though he faced a mortal enemy, I became serious too. Here it came, the real issue at last. Her longed-for first love was finally going to confront me on my CEO wife's behalf. I raised a brow coolly and nodded. Yang Xiang swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed with difficulty. His lips trembled as he asked the question that would decide everyone's fate. Have you really forgotten Shen Buyu completely? At that name, the image of a soft, fragile girl immediately appeared in my mind. A victim of an elite marriage arrangement who needed saving. Though I had no idea how I had come to that conclusion. I had even decided how I would deliver a fierce declaration that poverty did not define me, then sign the divorce papers with style. So, I looked into Yang Zhang's hopeful eyes and shook my head decisively, confidently, and coolly. Shen Buyu, I don't remember her. The room fell into deathly silence again. If the silence after the doctor announced my amnesia had lasted 5 seconds, then this silence felt like it lasted a century. I picked at my ear and looked at the 3 people before me. I hadn't gone deaf in the crash either. They could hear me just moments ago. That elite attorney, who had just been feigning calm, saw me shake my head, and his legs gave out. He dropped to his knees on the carpet with a thud. He clutched my bedsheet tightly with both hands. The light completely vanished from his eyes. He muttered under his breath, "It's all over. Beijing is going to be reduced to rubble." Shen Buji, that sunny college student over 6 feet tall. Tears streamed down his face. He dropped onto the floor, clutched his head, and began to sob silently, like a child whose holiday money had been confiscated. Help! Someone save me. I don't want my kneecap smashed. As for that decisive, handsomely dressed assistant, Qingqing, the important company documents in her arms scattered across the floor with a crash. She looked at me, her eyes filled with disbelief and profound despair. Then, she did something I could not understand at all. She spun around, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, and bolted wildly for the door. Qingqing, where are you going? Yang Xiang shouted desperately after her, without looking back. Qingqing frantically mashed the elevator button and roared through tears. I'm going back to the company, while Chairwoman Shen is still in the meeting. I need the hand in my resignation immediately, and while I'm at it, I'll buy myself 3 top-tier personal accident and fracture insurance policies. You two can wait to die. I'm out of here. Watching Qingqing disappear down the corridor, then looking at the floor, where one rival knelt in a daze, and the other sat weeping into his hands. Fang's you was completely lost. Wait, that wasn't how it went in the novels. Shouldn't you be taking advantage of my amnesia, trying to make me sign a divorce agreement? That my sweet, delicate wife would be consumed with regret, only to find that another icy, glamorous woman had already taken me home for all kinds of things. Why was it that I only forgot my wife? Yet you were acting like the sky had fallen. Who exactly has amnesia here? I cleared my throat, trying to break the strange tension in the room. You two are being weighted dramatic. I haven't even demanded compensation for emotional distress. What are you mourning for? Yang Xiang slowly got up. He did not even push up the glasses slipping down his nose. He only stared at me like I was a martyr. Fang's you have no idea what you've forgotten. A sweet little bespectacled CEO. What a contrast. Shen Buji was dumbfounded. Sweet, bespectacled. We'd be lucky if she didn't beat Yang Xiang and me until we begged for our mothers. Ever since childhood, Yang Xiang and Shen Buji had taken plenty of beatings from Shen Buyu. When the elders chased Shen Buji with a belt, he still dared to run all around the yard. But when Shen Buyu picked up a golf club, he did not even dare dodge. Shen Buji grabbed my shoulders, flailing in panic. When she loses her temper, everyone in the capital's elite circle runs as far away as possible. The 2 of us grew up getting beaten by her. We know better than anyone how terrifying she is. The whole capital's elite circle takes a detour at the name Buyu. I am the only person in the world who dares soothe her, and now I've forgotten that exclusive skill. Once she gets to the hospital and finds that I don't recognize her, none of us will get away. As Shen Buji said this, he shuddered first. If she learns you've forgotten her, and we're planning to divorce her, this entire hospital, along with us, will suffer. I looked at Yang Xiang, then at Shen Buji. One was my wife's childhood friend, and one was the foster brother she'd raised. By the tropes I knew, these 2 should have been thrilled that I had amnesia and wanted a divorce. But their expressions now clearly show they feared Shen Buyu would completely lose control without me. I was taken aback. When did I say I wanted to divorce her? That look you had earlier, 30% mocking, 30% cold and aloof. You practically had "don't look down on a poor young man" written across your face. Yang Xiang had no patience for our argument. He tore off his tie, pulled up a video on his phone, and shoved it in front of my face. Open your eyes and look carefully. See who you have shared a bed with for the past 3 years. See who she really is. The screen's glare made me squint. Is that this year's new phone? Why are you focused on that? Oh, The video was surveillance footage from a conference room. Shen group executives filled both sides of a long table. These people normally commanded respect everywhere they went, but now they all had their heads lowered, not daring to breathe too loudly. Some stared fixedly at their notebooks. Others were covered in cold sweat, but no one dared speak before the woman at the head of the table did. A woman sat at the head of the table. She wore a black suit, her long hair neatly pinned behind her head. Her beautiful face had a fiercely intimidating edge. Though I did not remember her at all, my heart still skipped a couple of beats. But the next second, the woman picked up the merger proposal on the table and slammed it down in front of the department head. President, and this is what your department spent half a month working on. The merger plan for the second half of the year you submitted to me? The man she named hurriedly stood to explain. This was already the best proposal his team could produce. Shen Buyu merely gave a cold laugh. She flung open the 200-page proposal, sending papers all over the table. The department head collapsed back into his chair. The other executives lowered their heads further. No one dared speak up for him. You miscalculated the profit margin by 3 percentage points. The legal risk avoidance clauses are still using a version from 3 years ago. I pay you millions a year, not to watch you prove yourselves to be useless idiots. If, by the end of today, I do not see a new proposal without a single flaw, you can all go to Africa and discuss optimal solutions with the lions at the branch office. With that, she snapped a fountain pen in half with one hand, then tossed it into the trash. She turned and dismissed the meeting. The video cut off abruptly. I swallowed hard and stiffly turned to Jian. Is it legal to install surveillance cameras in a conference room? Why are you still focused on that? No. Is that really Shen Buyu? The genuine article, and that was only heard during a meeting at work. Shen Buji nodded furiously beside us, saying this was Shen Buyu being reasonable. No doubt about it. The sweet wife you imagine is a Tyrannosaurus who can snap pens one-handed and make executives afraid to raise their heads with a single sentence. And you are the only person in the capital who dares pat that Tyrannosaurus on the head. I still had my doubts. What if this was all just an act? What if she really treated me like a dog behind closed doors? After all, since losing my memory, every memory of my marriage was completely blank, based only on a few words and some surveillance footage. I still did not dare fully believe that I could really handle someone like her, but there was no time to dwell on that. I grabbed Yang Jian's wrist. Then, what do? I really don't remember how to calm her down when she got angry before. How did I soothe her? I can't just knock her out, can I? Shen Buji nearly jumped up. Brother, if you want to die, don't drag us down with you. Whenever she loses her temper, you are the only one within 100 yards who dares breathe. The rest of us are already running for our lives. Yang Jian added expressionlessly. If knocking someone out could solve this, I think knocking out an alien would be easier than knocking out Shen Buyu. That's Ultraman, not an alien species, alright? I slumped back onto the hospital bed. Maybe I should hit my head again and coast through another decade. Yang Jian's phone suddenly rang. The caller was Qingqing, who had just fled. When he saw the caller ID, his face went from white to green. His fingers trembled twice before he turned on speakerphone. The call connected, and her shrill voice burst from the phone. Run, hurry. Chairwoman Shen's meeting ended early. She already knows Brother Fang is awake. She's heading down to the garage now. She'll be at the hospital within 15 minutes. My resignation letter is already on her desk. You're on your own. Good luck. The call ended with a click. Shen Buji's legs went weak. He dropped to his knees beside my bed. It's too late. Even the capital's morning rush hour couldn't stop her Maybach. Yang Jian wasn't doing much better. He had looked like an elite attorney a moment ago, but now he was checking the room for a back exit. I looked at the two rivals, who had been at each other's throats with me moments earlier. Now they looked like two quails awaiting slaughter. It was absurd. Guys, since we can't escape, give me a crash course. What does she hate most? What does she like most? What expression should I wear when she gets here? Should I pretend to be weak? Maybe she'll be too embarrassed to hit me. Yang Jian and Shen Buji exchanged a look. She hates being lied to most. What she likes most is. Yang Jian looked at me in despair. She likes you most. As for your expression, brother, that ready-to-die look you've got now is perfect. After saying that, neither man offered another useful suggestion. Clearly, whenever Shen Buyu got angry before, they only cared about running for their lives. They never saw how I calmed her down. I thought Yang Jian and the others were exaggerating. Then, the next instant, the sharp click of high heels sounded outside the room. Unhurried and measured, each step trampled on the nerves of all three of us. The footsteps and voices in the hallway quickly vanished. The clicking finally stopped outside the door. Nurses had been walking back and forth just moments ago, but now the whole floor was silent except for those heels. With every step closer, Shen Buji shrank a little farther behind the bed. By the time the sound stopped, he was clamping a hand over his mouth, afraid he would be discovered first. Shen Buji cowered beside the bed. Yang Jian closed his eyes, looking ready ready to face the executioner's blade. I stared at the doorknob. My heart rose to my throat. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. I was definitely a little panicked. The door opened. The woman who entered was Shen Buyu from the video. She was still wearing her black suit, but her once neat updo had come loose. Her breathing was rushed. Her eyes rimmed red, filled with anxiety and panic. She had clearly rushed straight from the conference room. For someone normally so meticulous, she hadn't even noticed her hair spilling over her shoulders. There was none of that world-ending menace. That is, if I ignore the fact that she was still holding the fleeing Qingqing in one hand. This was straight out of a romance drama. Shen Buyu casually let go of Qingqing and rushed straight to my bedside. Fang's you. How are you feeling? Does your head still hurt? Do you feel unwell anywhere? She reached for the bandage on my head, then worried she might hurt me. Her fingertips paused, then withdrew. She fired off question after question. Her gaze traveled from the bandage on my head, down to the intravenous needle in my hand. It was as if she had to see for herself that I hadn't lost an arm or a leg before she could truly breathe easy. She still carried the chill from outside, but her palm was warm. Standing this close, I could even see the red veins in her eyes. She must not have slept much these past few days. I was a little dazed. Was this really the woman they described? The one who chased people with a golf club and snapped fountain pens one-handed? A female Tyrannosaurus. The person standing before me now was plainly just a wife worried sick about her husband. I remembered Jian and the other's terrified state earlier, then looked at this red-eyed woman before me. I simply couldn't reconcile the two. I gritted my teeth and decided to come clean. Honey, the doctor said I hit my head and developed retrograde amnesia. I've forgotten everything from the past 3 years. In other words, I've forgotten you and everything about us. I'm sorry. The moment I finished speaking, the temperature in the room seemed to plummet. The anxiety on Shen Buyu's face froze. She stared at me, her hands slowly clenching, her red lips pressed into a thin line. Yet she never lashed out at me. Two loud gulps came from the corner. Jian and Shen Buji clung tightly to each other. Qingqing barely dared breathe. Shen Buyu's eyes reddened further. She looked aggrieved, as if she had no idea what to do with me. She didn't smash anything like she had in the video, nor did she take it out on anyone in the room. She only stood beside my bed and forced herself to hear my apology through. Strangely, I wasn't afraid of her at all. Seeing her like this, my chest ached for no reason. My body seemed to recognize her before my mind did. I lifted the hand without the intravenous needle and naturally placed it atop Shen Buyu's head. I gently rubbed it twice. Don't be sad. When I finished, even I was startled. I clearly didn't remember her, yet my hand moved with the ease of countless times before. Shen Buyu's tense shoulders instantly relaxed. The imposing aura that had silenced everyone earlier vanished completely. Her clenched hands loosened too. She stood quietly beneath my palm, letting me ruffle her hair. With her gaze lowered, she asked in a muffled voice, "You really don't remember me at all?" "Not yet." I glanced at the three people in the corner. Jian and Shen Buji looked as though they'd been pardoned. They scrambled out of the room. They even dragged Qingqing along. Before leaving, Shen Buji gently shut the door tight behind them. He was terrified of making even the slightest sound. The door closed. Only Shen Buyu and I remained in the room. I patted the edge of the bed, asking her to sit up straight. She was too close to me, with my memory gone. This face was little different from seeing it for the first time. A wife this beautiful was honestly impossible to resist. When she bent down earlier, I hadn't even known where to look. She was my wife, but to the current me, the novelty was a bit overwhelming. Shen Buyu had no idea what I was thinking. She sat on the edge of the bed, head bowed. She truly looked like someone wrong but refusing to get angry. She and the chairwoman Shen, who had silenced that entire conference room, seemed like completely different people. "I'm sorry, I forgot you." When Shen Buyu looked up, her tears suddenly fell. She gripped the hand without the needle tightly. Even her fingertips were trembling. "Fang's you. Do you know, during the 4 days you were unconscious, I felt like my world was ending." She told me. Old Liu, the driver, had been in the driver's seat and was injured the most severely. His life was saved, but he was left with high-level spinal paralysis. That rear-end collision and rollover had been even more horrific than the doctor described. If the car's body hadn't been specially reinforced beforehand, I might not be lying here in one piece after sitting in the backseat. When she heard this, she was terrified out of her mind. She didn't dare imagine what would have happened if that car hadn't been reinforced. What state I would be in now. So, when the doctor said I only had amnesia, she was actually relieved. She had barely slept, with dark circles beneath her eyes. Not until I woke up did she finally let go of the tension she'd carried for days. My heart sank. The doctor had only told me I'd been unconscious for days. Only now did I truly understand just how close that crash had come to killing me. That I woke up with all my limbs intact was an incredible stroke of luck. As she spoke, tears fell drop by drop onto the back of my hand. I didn't pull my hand away. I simply let her keep holding it. Shen Buyu hastily wiped away her tears and took my hand again. When she spoke again, her voice was still thick with tears, but her tone held the firm resolve of Shen Group's leader, as though as long as I was alive, there would always be a way to make up for those lost 3 years. As long as you're okay, as long as you're alive, then let the memories be gone. If you've lost your memories, we'll just start over. It doesn't matter if you've forgotten how we fell in love. We have all the time in the world to make new memories. Slowly, I'll make you fall in love with me again. I looked into her reddened eyes and couldn't bring myself to tell her the truth. I'd already fallen for her. How could I not? I comforted Shen Buyu for a long time and was forced to promise I'd check in wherever I went. Only then did I finally persuade her to return to work. The vast Shen group still needed her. She had abandoned a meeting to rush to my side, but she was still worried when she left. She looked back several times at the door. Only after the door truly closed did I drop my soothing tone. I began considering the unanswered questions behind the crash. The smile on my face faded too. You two outside. Quit eavesdropping. Get your asses in here. The hospital room door cracked open. Yang Jian and Shen Buji peeked inside to make sure Shen Buyu had really left. Only then did they slip in. Brother-in-law, you're seriously incredible. Shen Buji gave me a thumbs up. That's the first time I've seen Sister Shen at full force. And someone could still stand there breathing and talk to her. Enough nonsense. What I need to know is how exactly I used to calm her down before I lost my memory. Ignoring Shen Buji, I turned to Yang Jian. Tell me about the crash. If I'm Shen Buyu's only weakness, was this crash aimed at her? Or me? Yang Jian pulled over a chair and sat down. The truck driver has been detained. The police's preliminary conclusion is that it was an accident caused by drunk driving. The driver was a long-haul trucker. His usual bank activity was unremarkable, but days before the crash, a sum completely disproportionate to his income was transferred into his account. He stayed in the country to drive, but his wife and child left the country a month earlier. That can't possibly be a coincidence. But I checked his account a few days before the crash. It suddenly received a huge sum from an unknown source, and his wife and child had already been sent overseas last month. A classic murder-for-hire setup, but they covered their tracks well. Every lead stops with the driver. Why that truck happened to catch up to my car, and who transferred the money. We currently can't find any evidence that would stand up on paper. I leaned back against the hospital bed, tapping my fingers against its edge. My memories of Shen Buyu and the past 3 years were gone, but I still remembered who I was. I grew up without parents to protect me. Making it safely this far was never because I was gentle and yielding. If I didn't want people trampling me as a child, I first had to learn to stand on my own. Later, I gradually built up a network of people. Their work wasn't exactly respectable, but they could find people and dig up information faster than any ordinary company. I used to live in a leaking shared apartment, not just because I was broke. To make my people willing to work for me, I had to make sure they got what they deserved first. I hadn't needed to play that card before, so naturally, no one knew about it. To avoid being bullied in the past, I'd gotten to know some less than respectable, but highly skilled friends who could find anyone. Over the past 3 years, I probably never showed Shen Buyu this trump card, but now someone dared to flip the table. And next time, they might use the same methods on her. Maybe I once believed, no matter how vicious business competition became, there was still a line that couldn't be crossed. But this crash told me they had no intention of playing by the rules. I wasn't going to keep pretending. If we can't find them, stop looking for now. Wait until I'm discharged. Over the next few days, my body recovered quickly. No matter how busy Shen Buyu was at work, she came to the hospital every day. Sometimes she brought me bone broth. Sometimes she simply sat beside the bed, holding my hand while she handled paperwork. When she was busy working, she didn't say much, but she was never absent. I saw her when I opened my eyes, and often saw her before I closed them. She would be under the lamp, reviewing documents. Sometimes she couldn't make it at mealtime, so she'd put the soup in a thermos, watch me finish it, then leave. I'd lost my memories of her, but with everything she did over those days, she put herself back into my life. The day the doctor cleared me for discharge, a bulletproof Maybach took me into a heavily guarded luxury neighborhood and stopped before a villa with its own garden and pool. I stood at the door, stunned for a long time. This is our home. I'd only seen places like this online before. It had a garden, fountain, an outdoor pool, everything. The house was so huge that getting up at night to find the bathroom felt like I needed navigation. I'd only known about stretch limousines before. It was my first time seeing a stretch Maybach. The car and house took turns teaching me, until I finally understood what having an ultra-rich wife really meant. Though I'd accepted over the past few days that my wife was absurdly wealthy, seeing it in person still made my knees weak. Living off my rich wife really was comfortable. Shen Buyu settled me in before attending an international meeting. The moment she left, Yang Jian slipped into the villa, briefcase tucked under his arm. He looked back twice as he entered, making sure Shen Buyu's car had really gone far away. Only then did he dare take out the files. He spread several files across the coffee table. These are the people who recently had major conflicts of interest with Shen Group and who fight dirty. Each file contained company dealings, recent disputes, and the movements of those involved. Yang Jian had clearly organized everything he could find. It was just that their web of connections was too tangled. Going through it page by page, it was hard to spot the key point right away. I flipped through them casually. There were many names and tangled connections. No need to go into that much detail. Who is the most suspicious? Yang Jian pointed to one name, Huairen of Hongyuan Group. Last month, Shen Buyu had just snatched an important plot of land from them. Huairen had made threats at a dinner gathering, saying he'd make Shen Group pay. The others also had conflicts of interest, but Huairen had suffered the greatest losses recently, and his threats were the most vicious. The plot Shen Group took was Hongyuan Group's most important upcoming project. Huairen had not only lost profits, but also lost face in their circle. Find him. Find out where he'll be tonight. I want him to meet the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Yang Jian looked completely baffled. What does that mean? The Lord of Heavy Trucks. The Emperor of Dump Trucks. You get it, right? I wasn't planning to declare him the real culprit yet, but if someone in that circle knows the truth, and Huairen is the first to suffer, it will force them to investigate themselves immediately. Yang Jian shot to his feet. Fang's you. We have no evidence at all. This is revenge. I'm a lawyer. Who said I need evidence? My smile vanished. I stared at the list on the table. Yang Jian was a lawyer. He needed complete evidence that could stand up in court. But what I needed to do now was make those who knew the truth unable to sit still. Yang Jian stared at me for a long while. He wanted to argue, but he also knew that conventional investigation had hit a dead end. To make the broken trail reappear, we could only give those who knew the truth a reason they had to speak. Today, someone dared ram me on the overpass. Tomorrow, they'll dare ram Shen Buyu. Nothing can happen to her. I don't care whether Huairen is the real culprit, as long as he receives the same warning first. Those who don't want to take the fall will naturally dig up the person behind it. When they investigate their own people, will be far faster than Yang Jian, bound by official procedures, slowly following procedure. That is the result I truly want. Yang Jian's hand paused as he adjusted his glasses. In the way he looked at me, the worry he had for an amnesiac patient was gone for the first time. In its place was a measure of awe. Perhaps only today did he realize I had another group at my command. For the past 3 years, I had probably kept my claws sheathed around Shen Buyu. But if you never use a gun, people holding knives will think you're easy prey. 2 days later, Huairen received a first-class ticket to meet the Horsemen of the Apocalypse on an unmonitored mountain road. His car collided with a heavy truck loaded with steel rebar. He didn't survive. The police report stated it was also an accident caused by a drunk driver's mistake. Yang Jian stared at the report for a long time. From the route to the driver's condition, it looked exactly like my crash. The only difference was Huairen's car hadn't been armored. That stretch of road usually had little traffic, and the bend happened to avoid surveillance cameras. Every detail in the report looked reasonable. Even Yang Jian could find nothing that directly pointed to me. Yang Jian sat on my sofa, his hand shaking as he held a cup of hot tea. Fang's you really did it. I held the goji berry and red date tea Shen Buyu have forced me to make that morning. Without even looking up, I said, what else on the list? Who's next? A good deal of Yang Jian's tea sloshed out. It spilled onto his pants, and he didn't even notice. It was probably the first time he realized that being easygoing with Shen Buyu didn't mean I was easygoing with everyone. 3 days later, Mei Liangshan, the owner of a building materials market, was caught in a heavy truck rollover on his way home. He died at the scene. The report still called it an accident caused by driver fatigue. Placed side by side, the two reports listed different driver conditions, but the vehicles and outcomes were nearly identical. That was exactly what I needed everyone to see. They didn't need to know who did it. They only needed to know these 2 accidents happened after I was rammed, and both struck Shen Group's rivals. That was enough to frighten those who truly knew. Several names remained on the list. No one knew who the red pen would circle next, or whether a third heavy truck was already on its way. In less than a week, 2 bosses who had once challenged Shen Group, both notorious for fighting dirty, died beneath heavy vehicles in succession. The first time could be called a coincidence, but the second time put the warning plainly on the table. The entire Beijing business circle understood. Word made the rounds at several dinner gatherings. Those still clinging to hope began that night to check whether anyone around them had been involved in the crash. Fang's had just been rammed by a drunk truck driver and lost his memory. Then Shen Group's rivals suffered the same fate one after another. This wasn't an ordinary business war. Someone was telling everyone if they dared flip the table, they couldn't blame him for striking back without rules. Those accustomed to pulling tricks through contracts, public opinion, and money, suddenly found someone refused to play their game. The rules they knew best became useless overnight. Everyone with a guilty conscience panicked completely. Fear spread like a virus. Among all those was something to hide. It wasn't that they hadn't considered fighting back, but how could they? Send more dump trucks to ram me? That would only make things spiral further out of control. Everyone knew Fang's Yu was Shen Buyu's untouchable weakness. I was only injured and amnesiac, yet she was already barely holding back her rage. If something really happened to me, Buyu would use every resource Shen group had to fight everyone involved to the bitter end. Business wars are ultimately about making money. No one wanted to risk a few plots of land and market share by dragging themselves and their entire family into a lawless death trap. And no one wanted, for such small gains, to fight a fully enraged top-tier conglomerate to the death. If they kept playing dumb, the next ticket to that meeting might land in their hands. No one wanted to take a third warning for the person who hired the killer. So, without any urging from me, they had begun questioning one another and exchanging information, just as I circled the third person on the list in red pen, ready to keep raising hell. The villa's doorbell rang so fiercely it shook the house. Jian rushed into the living room, his tie flung over the back of his neck. He clutched a black flash drive tightly in his hand. No need to ram anyone else. Fang, the third one doesn't need to be rammed. I put down the red pen. Those people finally couldn't sit still. More than that, they're scared out of their minds. These past few days, several rivals who usually couldn't stand each other were trying to save their own lives. So they turned Beijing's underground network upside down. The connections they usually paid to maintain were all being used to save their skins this time. Half an hour ago, they joined forces and rooted out the person who hired the killer. Jian slapped the flash drive onto the coffee table. I looked at the black flash drive and couldn't help laughing. Once the threat landed on their own heads, these people were more willing than anyone to uphold justice. That was human nature. When I proved more ruthless than they were, these people, usually so skilled at exploiting loopholes, would instead help me find the one truly breaking the rules. Who is it? And Lan. Jian ground out the name through clenched teeth. The Yin family was an old established Beijing family, and Lan wanted Shen Buyu, but he could never have her. Unable to get close to Shen Buyu, he saw me as the person most in his way. In his eyes, as long as I died in an ordinary car crash, the place beside Shen Buyu would become vacant. Several once broken leads finally connected to Lan, so he paid off the truck driver, wanting to kill me first. The man who had her. I had no real impression of Lan. But in a story about a female CEO and a poor boy, there was bound to be a wealthy heir fated to be cannon fodder like him. The person who truly looked like the villain had been standing right in front of me all along. I glanced at Jian, only someone like Lan, who barely knew Shen Buyu, and saw only that beautiful face of hers, would dare fall for her. At that point, I realized I fit that description too. Buyu already knows. She told you to rest properly at home. You don't need to worry about what comes next. Not in your condition. She'll go to the Yin family herself and have a good talk with them. When Jian said, "Have a good talk," his voice noticeably trembled. Knowing Shen Buyu as he did, he knew those words had nothing to do with a normal conversation. And Lan had gone after the person she cared about most. Shen Buyu had waited until the evidence was solid before going to their door. That was already the last chance she'd given the Yin family. I stared at the flash drive on the table and rose to my feet. Stay home and recover. Give me a break. Shen Buyu had already stormed the Yin residence. If I, the one meant to calm her down, didn't show up, the Yin family probably wouldn't